Have you ever done jazz hands, Kenny? Come on, Kenny.
Not on purpose.
Give me some jazz hands. There we go.
7 o'clock, woo! I agree, yeah.
Okie doke.
Kenny's never done jazz hands. It's new for him.
Jazz hands.
No.
Focus sticker on there.
I've got coca, but I also had competitive dancer for almost 13 years. Not me.
Oh, I was thinking you were? It's like cutting that out.
Interpretive.
We're gonna give our colleagues just a minute here to hop online. We'll see. If not, we'll get going.
I don't have any messages from him.
Me neither, but I don't get messages in the building, so
Oh, really?
I'll do it, send him
I often get a bunch of texts right as I leave, so.
Well, we can move the agenda items around if we need to.
Let's see if Mike can. Because I just
Sent.
got a text from him like 15 minutes ago, so I would think we're. Just getting set up. I still can't join the meeting anyway. Are you guys into the meeting?
I'm in the meeting.
I can view it, I can't join it.
Really?
Okay.
Do you have to log off and maybe log on again?
I don't know, I always have problems in this building, so who knows? I'll try again.
Yeah, try again.
you.
It's me just trying to.
Make sure he gets logged on.
Okay, let's see. Log out of Board Docs, try again. I got join the meeting, so that's
Okay,
exciting.
There we go.
that's a good start.
Well, I can go ahead and, because we're going to swear in board members first anyway, so we'll get going. Okay, I have 7:03, and we're going to get going. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item 2 is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? So, Kenny, do I have a second?
Second.
A couple seconds. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I had a question.
Oh, about the agenda? I'm
About
sorry.
the agenda.
Go ahead.
Yeah, about the reorganization. Is it possible to move that to later when our colleague joins us because he's planning on being here this evening? And since he's not with us at this point? I know it's his
What do you
intent to
think?
be there.
What do you think, Travis? Should we move it? Should we have the swear, we have the oath of office before we even get to that anyway, so I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'd be fine to put it towards the end. I also think, you know, if there's any offices that you don't want to do tonight, you can always do those at the next meeting
Oh.
too.
Oh,
I should have thought of that.
So that's
That-
also
there-
another option.
Okay.
There, well, specifically, the treasurer's office
Yeah.
doesn't start until July 1.
that's
Yeah.
right.
So
That'd
there's
say
several
be-
options. that
I think somebody's trying to get in right now.
Okay. I just don't
Am I
want
supposed to do
when
something?
I know that our intent was to have all 7 of us here tonight, and he was trying to make sure to be here.
Oh,
Okay, then I guess we don't have to change the agenda, so I just wanted to have a discussion about that before we voted.
Okay, thank you. So then, all those in favor of approving the agenda, we have a motion and a second, signify with aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 6-0. So then we go to section 3, which is the oath of office for 2 of our board members.
I think you're first, Jordan.
Yes.
I, Jordan Levinson, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution Constitution of the United States
I, Jordan Levinson, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri, and that I will faithfully and impartially
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri, and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of school director in and for Afton School District,
discharge the duties of school director in and for the Afton School District,
County of St. Louis, State of Missouri, to the best of my ability, so help me God.
County of St. Louis, State of Missouri, to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Raise your hand. I, Mike McNeil, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I, Michael McNeil, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri, and that I will faithfully and impartially
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri, and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of school director in and for Afton School District,
discharge the duties of school director in and for the Afton School District,
County of St. Louis, State of Missouri, to the best of my ability, so help me God.
County of St. Louis, State of Missouri, to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Justin's here.
And Justin's here, so we have
Aha.
7 of us now. All right, so we will move on to section 4, which is the reorganization, and district policy states that the superintendent will serve as the temporary chairperson and shall conduct the election of board president and vice president. So we will turn things over to Dr. Brock.
All right, thank you. We will, I know you guys have the nomination process in front of you. Just real quickly, we'll start with president and then go on to vice president. And when someone is nominated, they need to accept the nomination. You don't have to second somebody being nominated, but they do need to accept it. And then if we have more than one person nominated and accepted, we will vote. If we only have one position, we can move to acclamation, which does still require a vote, but just a little bit different motion. So that's kind of the options that we have. And so I will open up nominations for president of the Board of Education.
So I would like to nominate Michelle Burford for the position of president of the Afton Board of Education.
Michelle, do you accept the nomination?
I accept.
Any other nominations for board president?
Okay,
All right, seeing
therefore,
no more nominations, I will close the nominations.
I move to close the nominations to elect Michelle Burford as president by acclamation.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We've got one on there. Any abstentions? I think we have all 7. Yay. Congratulations, Michelle.
Thank you.
All right, I'll open the nominations for vice president for the Board of Education.
I nominate Mike McNeil for vice president.
Mike, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
And then all those in favor of appointing Mike to vice president, raise your hand.
Do we
Not yet.
have, did we have,
acclamation.
I thought he was, sorry.
you were,
He does that part first.
Any other nominations?
Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
I might get one.
So
but that's-
sorry.
Yes, no.
Nobody else.
All right, then
I
we'll
second that
close
nomination.
nominations.
Yeah.
Can I talk now?
Yeah.
Now you move.
it's your turn, Bridget.
All those in favor of appointing Mike to vice president, raise your hand.
You have to move to
Yeah.
close
That-
nominations.
that's close.
Sorry, I
Third
wrote
one.
his part.
No, that's yours.
The last one.
Your board member.
Third
I
bullet.
move to close nominations and elect Mike McNeil to vice president by acclamation.
Yes.
And I second.
All those in favor of the motion say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed say no.
Yes.
7-0.
No,
Yeah.
it's.
He did.
Yeah,
It was
it's
a
7
yes.
to 0.
I checked, I looked over, Justin said yes, he raised his hand.
Thumbs up.
Okay. So we're good?
Yes. So, do you
I
want
guess
to
Do
we'll
I
turn-
take back
I guess
over?
we'll turn, do you want it? Or-
You can take back
You
over.
are the president.
I'll take it back
You
over.
can do it. You can do the third one if you wish.
All right, so then we will move on to treasurer. Sorry, get my notes back out.
Whoops.
Okay. Do we have any nominations for treasurer?
I nominate, hang on. I'm just trying to read it. I nominate Justin Carney for the position of treasurer by acclamation? No,
Not
Just
yet.
nominate.
not yet.
Just the
Nominate.
nomination.
Sorry, Justin.
We only do this once a year.
And Justin, do you accept that nomination? Okay, we got a
Yes.
thumbs up from Justin.
We all see it.
Do we have any other nominations for treasurer?
Okay, I move to close nominations and elect Justin Carney to treasurer by acclamations. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Mr. McNeil. All those in favor with the motion, say yes.
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 No?
Okay.
Yes.
You say yes.
He was a
Any
late
noes
yes.
or
Safe delay,
abstentions?
yeah.
Motion carries 7-0. 7-0, 7.
Seven. Thanks, Jordan. All right, and I believe that we have been going ahead and doing secretary tonight too, even though it's got a little bit of life to it left. So do we have a nomination for our board secretary?
I will nominate Claire Smith for the position of board secretary.
I accept.
Thanks, Claire. Any other nominations?
I now move to close said nominations and elect Claire Smith to board secretary by acclamations. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. San. All those in favor signify by stating yes.
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 Okay.
Yes.
Any abstained or noes? Motion carries 7-0.
Great.
All right.
Now we
Thank
can go
you,
on with
Claire.
business.
Yes. Every year, no matter how much we plan for it,
It's always in front
it's
of us.
just a little awkward, but thanks, everybody. Okay, so now we are going to move on to section 5, which is the consent agenda. And I need to jump my meeting forward. Administration recommends, and I so move that the board approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Bridget, second. Tonight it includes minutes from April 5th meeting, disbursements. There are 2 policies that were for second read, professional development agreement, St. Louis virtual campus MOU, Edgenuity renewal contract, homebound general education services agreement, and MSBA annual membership. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or anything to move out of the consent agenda?
Just a comment, that was a lot.
It was like a whole meeting, right, in a consent
Right, in the
agenda, and we
consent
still have
agenda.
another reading.
It's good stuff to have in there, though.
It is
Yeah,
really good stuff to
absolutely.
have, so.
There's nothing there inappropriately.
No.
Nope, it was good use of time. All right, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. So we move on to section 6, reports, and we start with our superintendent's report. Dr. Brock.
All right, just have a couple items. I know we've got a lot of things to cover tonight, so keep it somewhat brief. We do have our SOAR Awards program that's being released tomorrow night, and so you can kind of tune into your favorite social media channels, if you will, for the district, and you should be able to get that up. We also have a link here, so that will start at 7 if you want to watch it, I guess, right as it's being released, but certainly you'll be able to access it afterwards as well. So we've got our SOAR Award winners, District Teacher of the Year, and Superintendent Award winner that will be part of that program. So thanks to everyone that put that together, and excited to put that out tomorrow. And then another item that I mentioned, if you get the weekend updates, this went out in the parent update, also went out in the staff update. On an annual basis, we do surveys with our employees. We did that earlier in the year in October. We also do parent satisfaction and student engagement. This is the second year that we've been using the same survey tool. Even though we've been surveying for a long time, we really wanted to kind of stick with a consistent tool that we could get some really actionable readings on. And you can kind of see what those results look like. Definitely lots of appreciation for our staff in regards to it appears our parents really are appreciating and really have appreciated the efforts of our staff members. And so that was good to see those results go up very noticeably. There was hardly any item that I would consider low. There were lower items, but not one that I would consider a low score. And specifically, the item about positive comments going home. All of our buildings worked on that this year, and so we know we've got hundreds, thousands of positive messages that went out because the staff thought that's what we're going to do to try to raise that, and it clearly worked. It went up tremendously from 3.38 to 3.96. So kudos to our buildings for making that a priority, and I think it just shows, the more clear you can be about a goal and have specific actions, things do in fact get better, and the people that are on the receiving end of that let you know that they saw your actions differently and they appreciated it. So that's one thing I wanted to make note of. Certainly on the student side, just as this was a tough year for our staff, it was a tough year for students too. So it feels normal right now, but this is kind of an outlier, and it's been a long, difficult school year with a lot of uncertainties. And so not exactly surprising that the student results went down a little bit. On the bright side, we had almost double the participation. So we really got some good readings, and I hope we build on that and can maintain that high level of participation from our students. And at the same time, it gives us some things to work on. A couple things that I will highlight that our students kind of consistently last year and this year said they really appreciated. They really appreciate their principal and think their principal is an effective leader. And they think learning is a priority at school, and so that's always nice. That those are two things that last year and this year students seem to think are things that are going well in the schools. And so certainly we'll look at some of the lower scoring items, set goals, and then work on improving those. So just wanted to draw that to your attention, and be happy to answer questions about anything else or any of those items.
All right, thank you. Section 6.02 is the MSBA monthly board report, and I know I often speed by these, but there's some cameos in there from some people we know, and also some important dates that get mentioned that I want to make sure we all hear firsthand. So I did ask if we could cue it up. We'll see if it'll play for us well.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Missouri School Boards Association's Board Report for the month of April. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with a look at the issue of teacher recruitment and retention in Missouri. As we have reported previously, school boards and administrators throughout the state continue to grapple with a teacher shortage that has reached a crisis level in our state. Too few young people are entering the teaching profession, and too many teachers are leaving the profession early in their careers. The State Board of Education has formed a Blue Ribbon Commission to address the problem, including the issue of teacher salaries in Missouri. The 17-member commission includes 5 business leaders. Commissioner of Education Margie Van Dieven says that's by design.
We know that we need to raise teacher salaries. We know that we need to work on some of the conditions, and we've put to keep teachers' retention efforts, to keep them in our schools, and we've been outlining those. But we really need the business community to be the ones who are carrying that charge, or it looks self-serving. If we go over and say we need a teacher increase, it looks like we're trying to self-serve. This is an economic issue for this entire state, and if our business leaders can find and help find a dedicated funding source, we need their assistance in doing so.
Van Dieven made her remarks during MSBA's recent legislative forum in Jefferson City. The goal of the commission is to develop a set of recommendations and clear action steps that address teacher recruitment and retention solutions. The MSBA Legislative Forum held last month included presentations on several legislative issues now before the Missouri General Assembly as it heads for its May adjournment. The event also included a student showcase at the Capitol, where students from school districts throughout the state were on hand to discuss and demonstrate innovative programs in their districts. Governor Parson was among those who visited with the students. MSBA Executive Director Melissa Randall told school board members and administrators who visited the Capitol it's critical to tell the accurate story about the public schools of Missouri.
We've heard it said over and over and over again today that is our primary responsibility right now is to get our story told and to drown out the inaccurate information that's out there. Not let it divide us. This is a time we have to be united and we have to be laser focused on our children. They need us more now than ever as they recover from the experiences they've had these past 2 years too. And our teachers, we know they're hurting as well. Laser focused on supporting great teachers in every classroom for every child.
Besides attending the Student Showcase, school board members and administrators had the opportunity to visit with their legislators at the Capitol during the Legislative Forum. If you were elected to your school board for the first time this month, welcome to school board service. Missouri law requires all school board members to receive 18.5 hours of training within their first 12 months of service. MSBA's CBM Essential Board Member Training fulfills this requirement and provides the foundation for becoming an effective school board member. The training is free for all new board members. Check the MSBA website for a schedule of the training opportunities along with registration information. Make your plans now to attend MSBA's Igniting Great Ideas Summit June 11th and 12th in St. Charles. It's a great opportunity to participate in valuable leadership sessions and to connect with your colleagues from school districts throughout the state. Also, be sure your board is represented at the June Delegate Assembly to be held in conjunction with the Great Ideas Summit. Delegates will be electing state officers for the coming year at that meeting. The nominating committee is proposing a slate of officers for consideration, including the offices of President-elect and Vice President. That's it for this month's edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and so long from Columbia.
All right, so hopefully you saw a few people that were familiar in there as you watched. All right, so moving on to 6.03, Professional Development Committee Report. Dr. McGee.
Hi all. This is our meeting that we had, seems like forever ago, but we came together, we reviewed the Professional Development Day and made some plans for the future. Most importantly in that, we were getting our needs assessment together. That was deployed and we actually had a PDC meeting tonight. So you'll be getting yet another report on that. We've got great plans for back to school next year and we're really excited about it.
Great. Anybody have any questions about this?
Thanks. Thank you all.
All right,
Yeah.
thanks.
Thank you.
You're not staying for 2 or 3 this time?
Might as well.
He comes back. 6.04, we have the district safety team report.
Yeah, so last week our safety team met, did a little bit on severe weather readiness because we supposedly were gonna have severe weather. When you have severe weather readiness on the mind, sometimes that prevents, or maybe it helps to prevent the severe weather. So it was a good review, just to go through and see if there were any issues that were hanging out there with buildings. Then we did, the rest of this will be things you'll see later in the eval, but behavioral risk assessment and standard response protocols, some tweaks that we're making to make common language. And then we had the buildings update.
Okay. Anybody have any questions about that? All right, 6.05, annual federal programs meeting report.
Hey, fancy meeting you all here. Hello. We had our annual federal programs meeting, and this time I remembered to invite a board member. Because last year, my criticism to myself was, you know what, I should probably have a board member at this meeting. So special thanks to Ms. Cinnamon for being available. But it was a great meeting. We hold it every year. It is part of the requirements. And I do fantastic things like screenshots to upload to DESE to prove that we held the meeting, that people were in attendance, and what roles that they played as a part of it. We review our student data. We talk about how we spend the funding as well as serve students and what we plan to do in the future. And it's a requirement as part of our federal programs report. Any questions?
Or anything you wanted to add?
That was a great turnout.
It was.
It was a great turnout. You kept everybody engaged and kept it
It is
going.
really hard to do virtually.
It's your specialty. All
A lot
right.
of people virtually.
It is.
Anything else?
I did have one quick question for you. I'm sorry. Every time it seems like I see NWEA mentioned, that there's a comment about we need more training. Is that because it's hard, or just because it's effective and utilizing it better?
Yeah, I
Would be
think
good.
it's yes and, it's all of those things, but we have had a really good track record of providing really great professional learning opportunities, and we allow choice to be woven through those different opportunities, and people, as much as when they see a menu, they're not going to go, you know what I want to do? I don't want to go on a self-care workshop. I want to go learn about NWEA. But we are committed to continuing to offer that at every district professional development day. And we do have, again, in-house support for teachers that are interested in that. And we work with our building principals to deploy that as needed.
Got it.
The good
Thank
news
you.
is they're still asking for it. So when they stop asking for it, that's when we know we have a problem.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
All right, so then we move on to section 7, citizen comments limited to agenda items. I don't believe we have any for that. Section 8 is citizen comments not regarding agenda items, and we do have 2 of those, so I'm just going to read how that works, and then we'll get started. The board provides a time period near the end of the meeting, actually tonight it's closer to the beginning, in which any visitor may address the board. The board welcomes public comments from its community, and each speaker will be allotted up to 2 minutes. The board does not directly respond to a speaker during public comments. All questions will be responded to by the superintendent or a designee. And guidelines require that visitors fill out a sheet ahead of time, and I do have 2 of those. So our first comment tonight is coming from Stacy May, and I will welcome you to come right up to the podium.
Hello,
Hi.
I'm Stacy May. We just received notice April 4th that the Afton High School pool will no longer be available for Afton community to use for Afton water fitness classes. As an Afton alumni, swim instructor, Afton taxpayer, I'd like to know what we could do to keep the pool open. We are not a large group, but we all love the pool. The pool provides the benefits of water exercise that is so important to all the all the people and the social benefits for the people there too. A lot of these people have been doing it for years. I, in fact, have enjoyed the pool for about 29 years. I did swim lessons with my 2 boys who went to school there. We enjoyed Friday night family swim. They did swim team, water polo. We even used the pool a couple times for fundraisers for their class when they were trying to raise money for lock-in. We're not a large group, but we all love it, and we just want to know what we could do to hopefully keep it open. That's it.
Thank you. All right, and then I invite Mary Ann Schaefer. I hope I'm reading correctly as well.
Good evening. I'm here also to represent the water aerobics. I'm also a water aerobics instructor. Many of our participants have been in this program for 20 years. They're senior citizens. They do not benefit from anything from the district except that pool. It's their social time. It's their water therapy for doctors have recommended it. And I'm familiar with budgets. I do budgets for a local district, and I understand operating cost, but has every avenue been exhausted? In order to cut our program, there's grants out there that could be written, and I understand that closing the pool, retiling it, all costs money, but do we have to give up our group as a community that pays taxes, that doesn't benefit, and it does so much for our seniors? And the district itself is all about community. So I'm here for these ladies that use it for therapeutic reasons. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. So then we move on to section 9, which is school improvement items. Mr. McNeil.
All right. 9.01 is the gifted program evaluation, and Laura, you're going to speak to us tonight.
Hello, it's nice to be in person. So this year, we've really been working with NWEA data for a universal screening tool for screening for gifted students, and that has proven to be very successful for us. We've set equity goals based on Dr. Donna Ford. She's a guru on equity and gifted programs. She's from Ohio State University, so she has this 20% equity rule, which you can see on the underserved populations. And just to highlight is that we met and exceeded our goal for identifying students in underserved populations with minority status. Using 20% equity, we should have at least 14.4% of our gifted population identifying as minority population, and this year we have 19%, so we are really proud of that. Our universal screening procedures are working well. We're still working on the free and reduced lunch. I think with COVID and the lunches being covered, it might be a little bit difficult to know if we have every free and reduced lunch student being documented so that we could look at them. And then I also included our hit rates, basically like the number of students we tested versus how many qualified, and they are going up considerably using our new procedures that we developed last year. So something the gifted team is really proud of. And our main goal with this next year is to educate the general education teachers on identifying gifted students, gifted characteristics, especially gifted characteristics that are non-traditional. So our students from low SES populations, minority status, ELL status, they're going to present their giftedness maybe in non-traditional ways, and that's what we want our teachers to be educated in so that they can help meet those students' needs. Any questions?
Looks like some good results.
So what would a non-traditional way look like? What would a non-traditional, for example, what is that?
So sometimes it can present with more leadership qualities, but maybe those leadership qualities aren't the best behavior qualities. So typically students in low SES populations might demonstrate leadership in a way that might get them in trouble. So at the national convention this year, one of the strategies that a district did was they took all of the students that had been written up multiple times and they screened them for gifted, and a large percentage of the students actually qualified. So the traditional view of giftedness is they're just perfect students, always very well behaved, straight A's, and that's really not always the case, and it's actually not usually the case. So we're trying to change that narrative of what a gifted student looks like and be more equitable and inclusive. And I think our team is working really hard and seeing some success with that.
That's great, thank you.
Any other questions on this? The administration recommends, and I so move, that the board approve the gifted program evaluation. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? I'm going to assume Justin is just a
His
tape
hand was
delay.
up.
His hand went up.
It lingered a
There's a
little.
Yeah,
little
so
delay,
7-0,
little
yes.
time delay.
All right, so then 9.02 is the facilities program evaluation. Jeff, you are up.
I was just kind of going over this again real quick, kind of going through the sections. And the first one, the big change we've had over the past year is taking on our new custodial supervisor. He's about to celebrate, coming up here in July 1 year. Marlon Moody, and so far he's been a great addition to the team and has really improved the quality of the cleaning in our buildings. We've also kind of increased his manpower by one, or about half. We brought on a substitute custodian to kind of help fill in whenever we have vacancies in any of the spots. So, Section 2, I was kind of going through, and just at the high school, it was hard to believe that these were some of the projects that we completed just in this past year with the retaining wall, our performance contract, roughly about 30,000 square feet of roof restorations, our main gym floor being refinished, and then the stadium complex, which we actually have the training for the staff at the high school on the scoreboard this coming Thursday. So if you guys haven't had a chance to get up there, I highly recommend it. It turned out way better than we were all kind of really anticipating. It was Erica and Adam Jasinski, when I sent them over the picture, they thought it was a Photoshop picture. I'm like, no, that's really what it looks like in real life. So we're all very happy with the way that one has turned out. Some of the other noteworthy ones that we've completed this past year, as I mentioned before, part of that 30,000 square feet of roof restoration was 18,000 square feet of Rogers. And that was a new method that we went with because due to shortages of roofing insulation coming out of Texas, it's just impossible to get a hold of. So we tried a new method on our, what's a modified bit, kind of like a shingle type flat material. If it's in okay condition, we can put a coating over the top of that and get another 15-year warranty out of it, and at about half the cost of a traditional roof replacement. So we're testing that out right now. It's looking like it's working really well, and we'll obviously keep monitoring that to see his options moving forward. This summer, we will be doing traditional roof replacements, but we're always going to have that roof restoration as an option, for if budget reasons or supply, issues come up. Some of the other ones, Mainier, we were able to finish that north entrance where the switchback stairwell was, kind of open that up. I think, it's kind of the unofficial front of the building. We were able to really kind of clean that up, create a handicap accessible entrance to the building there, and really kind of add some curb appeal. And then finally, I can move on actually to our proposed goals for this next few years. We have a lot on this list, and we're still trying to work out the schedule, but this list is actually, a lot of these are either scheduled or we have the wheels in motion for design on them. Like I said, some of the highlights on that, in these next couple of years, we would like to do some handicap accessible ramps at the high school. You see we've got kitchen renovations on there. We're kind of still just playing a lot of catch up on the high school on getting that building where it needs to be. Mainier's another one. We're going to be doing a lot of roof replacements over there. We were hoping to be able to get at it this year, but with them hosting summer school, we've kind of put some Band-Aids on there so we can hopefully get it to hold off until 2023. And then we have the big HVAC renovation at the administration building, which we actually had the pre-construction meeting for today. So we're really looking forward to that one. It's finally getting the remainder of the steam heat out of the district. And with that, we'll be doing some new ceiling, new lights, and getting that building on our building automation program. And by the end of this summer, we'll have the entire district up on our building automation system. So the next time we do our workshop and we go to that utility budgets page, I'm hoping to show a big trend. We're much either closer or have succeeded our 50% mark on reduction of our utility bills. Other than that, we're going to continue to try to increase the efficiency of our buildings, reduce our operating costs, and provide just a safe and fun place for kids to be educated. Any questions?
Yeah. What was the Eagle Scout project?
Okay, I always put that in there. Me and Steve were talking about this a while back. Some of the funnest projects I think we get involved with, they're not the big projects, but it's some of the smaller ones. And I always enjoy when the Eagle Scouts reach out. I actually have another one coming up, working with the green team at the high school. One of the students there, Ellie, she's kind of coordinating a team, and I'm helping her with the logistics on. We were picking out tree types together and where they were gonna go throughout the district. And so I'm just kind of trying to provide support. And that's the same thing we did at Gotch last year with the Eagle Scouts. His name's escaping me right now, but the Eagle Scout who wanted to do it, he wanted to clean up one of their back courtyards that had kind of become overgrown. And I just really provided support for him and worked with them to, help him develop, a concept plan, material list, cost budgets, and then help him get all the materials there. And then him and his team put it all together. They painted some benches, they cleaned up the shrubbery, did some pavers, and it turned out really well.
Nice.
So,
Thanks.
Awesome.
anything else?
No?
Great.
No? Thank you.
Thanks.
I do remember about 20 years ago doing an Eagle Scout project in that courtyard to clean it up before.
Yeah, do it every couple of years.
Yeah,
It does end up falling on us to take care of that.
yes. So, all right, well, the administration recommends, and I so move that the board approve the facilities program evaluation as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes 7-0. And then we move on to 9.03. Dr. Daughtry, you are up with the safety and security program.
Thank you. So I'll go through some of the highlights on here. One, just always point out to the amount of cooperation we get in this district with safety, the fact that we have our local agencies that join us for our safety committee meetings. That doesn't happen everywhere, so it's something we should highlight and appreciate. More cameras installed, and it's a pretty rave reviews, and I thank Adam for his work on getting those done and working with our buildings on finding key placements. The one thing that I get constant feedback on is, those are great, now let's add one here or there, or, so eventually, it does pan out to where you want these pretty much anywhere when you're doing investigations or when you're just trying to make sure people are being safe. We worked with Center St. Louis on establishing that as a reunification point, a nice central location, big facility. We've done a couple of tours now. Our assistant principals have kind of taken the lead on working on that for their buildings, so that we don't want this to happen. We hope we never have to use it, but if we ever needed it, it's a facility that's open and it's got the space on the inside to be able to host a whole school in there and to do it safely. So that was a big change. They're still working on tweaking some of the reunification planning because, as with any place in Afton, there are logistical challenges like parking. And when you have a whole school going to be someplace, it's very hard to find a lot that can actually contain some of that. So we're still working on trying to find adjacent places for people to be able to park and smoothly move traffic through there. But we're working that way. Safety audit, I'm planning to move that to next year. I've had plenty to do this year when it comes to safety, unfortunately. But bigger reason is I'm working with MSBA after I've gone through the training in trying to use a Missouri tool. Last time I did it, I kind of took a mixture of Iowa, Indiana, and Colorado, and kind of put them all together to come up with something. So when we had them there for our threat assessment training, that was one of the things we talked about, was actually having a Missouri tool that we could actually deploy and utilize. Standard response protocol, we're moving to a new one. I attached the sheet. The biggest piece of that was just to get through the confusion we always have with internal, external lockdowns. And so that one pager will go in every classroom with every staff member, so there's some easy reference guides to that. And we're going to work, Erica and I are going to work on training each of the buildings at the beginning of the school year so that we can go with that as a full implementation. And then finally, we did some behavioral risk assessment training with MSBA's support. Really, really good training, and so good that we're planning on trying to do it again and get more people trained and go through it. Ironically, we used the tool essentially a day after the training. We held the training on Friday. We had to use the tool on a Monday and use it successfully, kind of a team approach to taking a look at what would have been considered a threat or some type of a behavioral risk. And a lot of times people automatically think these are this is somebody that's going to come in and hurt somebody. And it may not always be the case. Sometimes it's may hurt themselves, or it may be an adult in the building that's going through crisis. So it's as much to do about mental health as it is about an actual threat to the building. So those are just some of the highlights in this year's safety program eval.
Could you explain the reunification point idea?
Yeah, so if you have some type of a critical event that happens in a building, you know, you never want to think of the active shooter scenario or anything like that, but essentially an event where you have to move students outside of your building, you want to have a place where you can reunify with parents and do it in a safe manner.
Yeah.
So you have to have a large facility because hypothetically, if, you know, and we always think of people unfortunately always move to the active shooter scenario, but you could have something like, you know, we had a chemical fire, for example, this last time. Could be something like that where we have to move a whole school. So it's got to be a big place where we can get kids organized, and then we can run parents in and do it in an organized manner to where a parent has to validate, to show this is my child that I'm picking up, make sure that we do it in a way that shows privacy. So if there's been unfortunately any victims, anything like that, that there's a place for them to go so that they can be separated from the rest of the group. There's a lot of logistics to it, but that's kind of the idea behind reunification.
Good. All right. Any other questions?
I just have a comment that I think that standard response protocol, like, I want to put that on my refrigerator as a parent, because there were times this year when we were moving through different stages of something when it's like, I didn't even know exactly what that meant. And I think parents are getting a lot of texts from kids in real time, and it's hard to know, is what my kid is saying, does that mean that things are okay in their classroom, or is something wrong? And I feel like if I had had that sheet in front of me, I could have said, well, that's exactly what your teacher's supposed to be doing right now, or something like that.
Interesting you say that, because when Erica got these printed out, one of the things she did was a pocket guide as well.
Yeah.
So real quick foldable, and then we'll put it out on, you know, any social media platform, things like that. But yeah, I just think the confusion that comes in with that, and obviously the initial reaction from everybody in a crisis is, I've got to come to the building and get my child. And sometimes that's not the safest thing. You've got to give it a little time to make sure that it is safe to be on school grounds to be able to do that. So trying to clear that up for everybody, I think, is important.
That's great.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, well, the administration recommends, and I so move, that the board approve the safety and security program evaluation as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes 7-0.
Great, thank you. That takes us to section 10, personnel items, Mr. Levinson.
Personnel from Mr. L. All right. 10.01 would be the collective bargaining agreement approval, and we have concluded the process. And Dr. Brock, would you like to carry on any further for us?
No, just really appreciate our board members that were directly involved. So thanks to Bridget and Mike, and then also Kenny and Jordan, who were at the meetings, and then also the rest of our board members kept up with the notes and the updates. So I appreciate them being engaged throughout the whole process. And so certainly that helps when you feel like you have reached an agreement. Pretty confident that all of the board is agreeable as well. And so it is a 4-year agreement, a little bit different than our last 4-year agreement. The salary is 2 years, so you'll see 2 salary schedules, one for next year and the year after. And we are coming back together for the purpose of renegotiating those remaining 2 years. There's also an opportunity to potentially look at the extra duty pay schedule if we've made some progress on looking at that differently, but if not, we've got that in place for 4 years as well. So that's just something that's a little bit different than what we've done in the past. And so, like I said, appreciate your guys' involvement. And this is kind of the final step for you guys approving it. And it's been approved by our teachers' organization. So I think we're in good shape to do this tonight.
Any other questions?
Just happy we are at the finish line.
We're at the finish line, yes indeed. District administration recommends, and I so move to approve the collective bargaining agreement as presented. Do I have a second?
Second. Pick.
Further questions or comments? All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Is Justin a yes, or did he freeze?
Justin, are you a yes?
Is that a yes?
He's a yes.
All those, any opposed? That's a yes. Got you, Justin. Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Moving on to 10.02, which will be staffing changes, which includes some resignations. We also have some summer school fill-ins as well. I'm going to go ahead and let Dr. Brock take this one as well, please.
Yeah, and so certainly last time you saw that we've gotten a really good start on a lot of our retirements and resignations. And so as you look at the employment list, you can see we continue to make progress on that. And so certainly there's a few items on the resignation list where those may have just recently been posted, or they will very shortly. And so, like I said, so far, knock on wood, I think we've had good luck with recruiting people for positions. And so I hope we continue that. I think we got a little bit of an early start, which has certainly proven helpful. And then, like I said, we'll continue to get after some of these positions and get that done. Probably the only things I'll mention.
Yeah. And I know there's some transfers of employment transfers of employment in there as well, so it's moving around. Any other further questions?
No, it's just so much.
There's a lot to go through.
There was a lot, yes, and I'm sure we're not done by any means. So, administration recommends, and I so move the approval of the staffing changes as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any further questions? All those in favor signify by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Moving on to 10.03, we have the certified staff employment list for 22 and 23. Right back at you, Dr. Brock.
Yeah, so these are just kind of helping the board see kind of some of the different delineations as far as, staff members that we're reemploying. This is one of those things that in some years maybe we would have brought this a little bit sooner, but we're kind of looking to wrap up our collective bargaining agreement process. Also, we knew we were in a position where we really weren't looking to cut any positions, so as long as someone was in good standing, we were happy to employ them next year. And so that's why I think maybe these are just a little bit later than they normally would be, but nevertheless, certainly an item that we always want to bring to your attention on an annual basis. And I think like I said, we're fortunate to be in that position where you're seeing we're hiring for positions, and then we're able to carry forward the positions that we currently have. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, but I think this is kind of a similar format to how you've looked at these, and so we've tried to make that as easy to understand as possible.
Good information.
Absolutely. All right, any other questions? Administration recommends, and I so move the approval of the staffing changes as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Kenny, all right, slipping in from the other side of the room. All right, for the questions, all those in favor signify by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries 7-0. I feel like this is like the longest my section's ever been. I think I just wanted to hear me tonight. I like this. All right, 10.04 is the additional services, extra duty list stipends for 22 and 23. Kind of self-explanatory, but Dr. Brock, go ahead.
Yep, this is, if there was ever the epitome of a work in progress, this would be it. So it's only as accurate as the minute you hit save, and then it's not. So this is certainly something that is worked on kind of progressively, so do the best we can at this point in time to bring you what we feel like we know for certain, and then ultimately we'll still kind of continue to work on this, certainly with resignations and retirements. Sometimes you got to get those new folks in place, and then they can kind of start backfilling some of these positions, folks that haven't actually started working for the district yet. So slowly but surely, we'll keep chipping away at this if you see open positions, and but this is what we know as of right now. And if anything, it also lets you see what are the positions. So even if we don't have it there, you get to see this is something that we're planning to do, and we're planning on filling that position. So it also gives you a good background on what all the different things are that we're looking to do for next school year.
All right. Administration recommends, and I so move the approval of the staffing changes as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Further questions? All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. And finally, on my amazing section, 10.05 is the 2022-2023 administrative and off-schedule list.
Once again, fairly self-explanatory, kind of, with our teaching staff, we're in a good position where if they want to come back and they're doing a good job, we're happy to have them. Kind of same thing with our administrators and off-schedule that we're looking forward to keeping that in place as well. So this also kind of gives you a list of what are those positions and then who do we intend to fill those.
Okay. Any other questions? Administration recommends and I so move the approval of the 2022-2023 administrative and off-schedule listing as attached. Do I have a second?
Second.
We're gonna give that.
Kenny can have it.
Oh, Patricia, I
You can have
insist. All right. All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0.
All right, thank you. That takes us to section 7, finance, which is usually Mr. Carney, but since he's with us virtually, I'm going to ask Mr. McNeil to lead this section for us tonight.
All right. Well, first, we have the monthly financial statements. And Steve, anything you want to comment on there? I know we will be getting into the finance workshop in a little bit.
Yeah, you'll hear plenty from me, so I'll spare everyone on this.
All right, well, this is for information only. Are there any questions for Steve related to these? Okay. Then 1102 is a bid award for Chromebooks, and we were not lacking in bidders on this one.
Thank goodness. Everybody's got them back in stock now, huh?
So, who wants to, anything the administration wants to share on this one?
No, other than, we're fortunate that we do have a technology director that knows what is needed and is very specific about the product we need to serve our kids well. And so, the bid is structured accordingly. And so I think just know that there's a lot of intentionality that goes around that. And it is great that we have a lot of bidders at the same time. We also need to make sure they can deliver on specifically what's in the RFP.
Right. Yeah, I thought it was really good, the discussion of which brands that we have gone through that had quality control issues versus others, and then the specific digging into the warranty service. I agree, it was a very detailed bid form and was really well done. So, pass along my compliments on that.
Is YNS who we've been using?
So we used last year.
That was the same one? Okay. I thought they sounded familiar.
So any other questions on this one? Administration recommends and I so move the approval of YNS to provide Chromebooks for the 2022-2023 school year for the price of $225,000 and $225,680.
Second.
All right, and any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that also passes 7-0. And then we move on to 1103, which is Budget Revision 3. And we literally just came out of the Finance Committee, so this feels like we just did this, but I know everybody else needs to see it as well.
Right.
It's true, yeah, it's gonna be repetitive for a few people here. And actually, there's a little bit of awkwardness with Budget Revision 3 needing board approval tonight, and a finance workshop after it that includes talking about Budget Revision 3. So my plan was to leave most of the detail of Budget Revision 3 and going over it for the finance workshop, and we're kind of having more of a discussion about it, and but I also would like to make sure everyone's comfortable approving it, so happy to answer any questions or anything like that now.
What are the major areas?
Yeah, so I'll say the biggest area that was impacted is salaries and benefits, and it was Krista and I went through and we aligned all of our contracts that, we're now 3/4 of the way through with the budget for, I guess it'll be the third time this year. That's really what the biggest change was, and then a couple of changes to some revenue to shore up like year-to-date receipts with, you know, what we actually are expecting to get by the end of the year. And then we made some adjustments to ESSER 3, mostly just timing, because we have projects that are happening over the summer, and trying to figure out, okay, are we going to pay bills in June or July? So we'll talk about that with the preliminary budget as well, but those were the major things.
And there's a sheet that shows the fund balance by calendar year and then debt margin. That reflects the, what's it called again?
Defeasance.
Defeasance.
Yes.
I couldn't pull it out. But that does reflect the defeasance that we're expecting you to do. So it's nice to see what little debt we have go down. Any other questions on this before our next thing is the finance workshop, so we'll come right back to it, but we need to approve this tonight. So administration recommends, and I so move, the approval of the 2021-2022 budget revision number 3 as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so you have budget revision number 3 passed.
Thank you.
All right, go back to you.
So section 12, finance workshop. Now that we've approved it, Steve, why don't you tell us about it?
You have to pass it to see what's in it.
Are we gonna organize our room differently, or?
I thought we'd just stay here, if that's okay, I think.
When Justin comes back, I'll just turn on the Steve.
Yeah.
Okay. So one other thing is.
So we're gonna move into a period that's a workshop where it's a little more conversational of a style. So we love to have all of our guests with us, and we welcome you to stay, but we also will not be offended if you wanna depart now, because this will be a bit of a longer conversation about the district's finances in a very broad sense, so there you go, stay here.
So I will say, as we're taking a break for a minute or two, I made a short slideshow and attached it at work this morning, and it wasn't there. So
I would welcome a break for 2 minutes anyway.
Yeah.
Okay,
so-
let's take 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
So if he doesn't come back, you'll be acting out?
Exactly, yeah, we're gonna put on a play.
A little play.
If he's acting out, that means he's gifted.
We need Ms. Hubbard to judge that.
Sure. What was that, Chris?
She said, Krista said most accountants are known for that.
Filtrating water, yeah. I think it's a green space, it's from, you know, but yeah. But, as it goes,
Entries on the back. Why? Like the letter reduction. Why?
Yes. And like in our case, it really wasn't kind of that lower.
I think we're all good. Chair. He's gonna ask me if I'm there. Don't want to text me pictures of deers.
And so it causes a centrifugal. Now, it's all different.
She decided not to do it.
But that was part of that project.
Tonight they got.
No, I have some pictures of it. You know, while it was being installed and everything, but since we don't have
This is the window, okay.
It works.
I think that is tonight, yes.
Oh, yeah.
There's.
Goes right inside, it's a small storefront, it goes right inside the unit. That has to we're able to tear that out and create a green space. But also like just the extension and security. Curriculum. We're working on that, so right now, kind of absolutely. Here. Right. Absolutely, and yes, you're absolutely right. In the focus, I made focus on that, so usually utilities are utilities, because they were just like out of control. So, and maybe it's like, I have lost my focus, like, this is still important to me, absolutely, I can't, if you guys are coming, I'll shift the conversation. Some of those projects. I'm part of the USGBC, the United States Green Building Council.
It's not my fault. I mean, it is my fault.
My allergies hit, and I was like, oh. How was it?
I just missed it.
It was fine. Other stupidity going on. It's fine.
Allergies. And all of a sudden it just hit, and I was like, my eyes and everything, and I was like,
Wait, that's what he looks like.
what?
Oh, there you are.
I'd go down there and talk to him, but I don't have
Okay, friends,
so worried.
let us reconvene and discuss the finances.
I can't wait. They're gonna call me back. He's here.
He was showing me pictures of his truck.
The Alex total? Yeah. Did you see that?
I just said to him, I go, dude, when did you get into it? When you said that? Because it's total.
It went, what? He totaled it.
Yeah.
He sent Mike a picture. And I'm like, dude. Isn't he so cute?
Is he okay?
Yeah, no,
It's okay.
here's-
Alex is
truck's
good.
done.
Truck is
There he
good.
is.
And who cares about the truck? Like that?
Right. Replaced.
That's all right, I was too, and I.
Yeah, I think he's.
Was it something Travis said? I mean,
No.
Oh, there he is again.
No, but I don't know if he's gonna hang out with us for the whole
I
finance
could totally
committee.
use one of those.
Which way you want to face? Towards Steve?
Can I have one?
Anybody else want a water?
I came prepared.
I did not.
Thanks, Claire.
Sorry, Claire.
All right, so I apologize for that. If you reload your board docs, there should now be a short finance workshop.
Yeah, are we about to all
slideshow on there.
Did you say you shortened the finance workshop?
I did, yes.
You're welcome.
Pretty sure that's not what he
You
said.
put it in consent.
Let's try.
Put it in consent.
Everybody's having a good time.
Can't
Who
like
said
add it
that?
to consent after
It's
the
true.
fact. I'm sorry, Kay.
Hold on, I'm still.
Thought it was
Follow those rules, you know.
No, you go.
Looking at
Go ahead.
preliminary?
I'm good.
We got
I'm
it?
good.
We
The
good?
finance
Wait, I have to join the
budget
meeting.
presentation.
Yes, got it.
There we
Reload.
go.
Ah, there
Good to
it
go.
is.
Okay, yeah, not sure what happened with that earlier, so apologize for that.
Okay.
Um,
And we'll just watch it.
So, a couple of things that we wanted to go over tonight. And budget revision 3, as we talked about, I want to go through just a little bit and kind of show everyone what it looks like at this point. Of course, we're going to have another budget revision before the end of the year, but we did spend a little bit of time on that, and we also spent a good amount of the last few weeks creating the preliminary budget for next year. So those are the two main items that there's a lot of budget things happening this time of year. This is, I guess, the budget season, you can call it. So we've put some of that together and wanted to share kind of what that looks like at this point. And then kind of coinciding with the preliminary budget is also our capital projects list. So as we've kind of had an increased focus on our capital projects over the last few years, wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of what things that we were thinking were probably going to happen in the coming year. There are several of them that you probably know about. There's a couple of them that you've already approved, but there might be some new things on there too, so we can kind of talk about that. And then finally, an ESSER 3 update. We intend on spending all of those, well, we must spend all of those funds before August 2023. So they are included in next year's budget, so we'll kind of talk about what those are going to look like. So the first thing, the budget revision, in the slideshow, we attached the first couple of pages of what our budget revision 3 book looks like. So we didn't do all the charts and everything, but we did do the first couple of summaries. And as we talked about earlier, a few things that we did, really the bulk of the work was on salaries and benefits, and we wanted to make sure that at this point in the year we had a pretty decent idea of what those were going to look like for the rest of the year. And really at this point, there's not going to be a whole lot of changes. Most people should be in place. Of course it's ever changing, but really it should look this way through the end of June. So we wanted to make sure we took the opportunity to go through and do that. In doing that project, we did take $342,000 from the salaries and benefits budget. So, and really that, a lot of that is just right sizing, or we have placeholders for things where we are still hiring, or people have moved into positions or out of positions, or quit partway through the year. You name it, it has happened this year. So we did have a deduction there from the budget, and that also included some curriculum and PD stipend amounts of $86,000. So, and that was just things that aren't going to be done this year that were originally in the budget. And we worked with Chris on those PD and curriculum budgets to kind of make sure that they looked like what they should for the rest of the year. A few other areas, purchase services, we did take $215,000 from it, a number of different things. A lot of the things that are still having pretty decent changes have to do with the pandemic in some way, shape, or form. It's just whether our programming is different, or our virtual learning is different, or it's not quite what we thought it would look like, or all of those things that were unknown are becoming a little bit more known, and now we're changing the budget to what we know. So things that were included in that, scope services we brought down, and that's just we didn't utilize scope as much as we have in previous years. Travel budgets were decreased, and that's just because I think people expected travel to be back to normal this year, and then it wasn't back to normal this year. So some of those things happened. Virtual learning is another thing that has kind of been a work in progress as we've gone through the last couple of years on what things are available to us, what things do our students want to use, what things do we want to provide for them. So we made those changes as well. The supply budgets were also decreased about $150,000. So a couple of different things. One of them was to align our food service supplies and food costs. So one of the really different things about this year's budget than in other years is our food service, both on the revenue side and on the expenditure side. On the revenue side, we're getting way more revenue than we ever have in the past. It's all because of the free meals. We're serving way, way more meals than we typically would in a normal year. They're all being reimbursed through the state, which is great. The program's running really well. I wish that it could continue in future years. It's not going to continue in future years. But of course, along with that, during budget revision 2, Krista and I looked at our food costs and food supplies, we thought, oh, we're spending a ton more on food costs, which makes sense when you're making a whole lot more meals. But then we were this is us just trying to right size it to what it looks like it's going to be for the remainder of the year as those bills have come in. Let's see, what else is there? The other thing, go ahead.
This whole time I've been trying to figure out, I was like, all these expenditures are down, there must be one giant one because the arrow is going up, but I think the arrow is just supposed to be going down, right?
That also could be true.
I really was like, man, that's down and that's down, where's the huge increase? But I think there's none.
It's true.
Just down, right?
It's true.
Okay, just making
That
sure
arrow
I'm
is
not
just
missing
really-
something.
It's just trying to be positive.
Okay, you're just being positive.
That's really what that means.
If you turn.
Yes, excuse me, excuse me.
This is an interactive workshop, I got it, yeah.
True, yes. So, yes.
One increase on there.
Accurate. So, yes, expenditures overall decreased by
Okay.
$500,000. So, the other thing in supplies that we talked a little bit about in our finance committee meeting was that typically with our zero-based accounts, especially at the building and department level, we try not to touch them until the end of the year, just because we don't know the timing of everyone's plans, and they asked for it, and at the beginning of the year, and so it's hard for us to know exactly what's going on in each specific building with each specific account, and so typically we leave most of those accounts to budget revision 4 before we really address them, because budget revision 4 is June. We're like, if you didn't use it yet, you're not going to use it now, and the year's pretty much over. So, but this time we did look at a few accounts, and it was a little bit earlier than we typically do it. So not everything. We still know that there's stuff out there that we'll look at over the next couple of months. But we did go through and we did decrease some supply accounts where we saw that I don't think that there's any way that this could possibly be spent before the end of the year, or there's no indication that this is going to be spent. Our buildings are supposed to have the vast majority of their POs in at this point. So if they don't have POs in and there's a lot of budget still there and they're not planning on encumbering anything, then I can only assume that it goes away. So we talked with principals about that earlier this month, and we did a little bit of it. There probably still is much more to do. And then on the revenue side, for this, we did increase it $203,000. And that was to align our state assessed utilities went up by $69,000, and that was just, we've got the revenue for the year, so we matched the budget up with it. We increased our ESSER 3 budget a little bit, just due to the timing of the projects and when we can request reimbursement for some things that we weren't sure whether it was going to fall within this fiscal year or next fiscal year. And then the other thing is we did decrease our before and after care tuition by $77,000. That was a really tricky budget to do this year, coming back from it being shut down last year. We weren't really sure what participation was going to look like or anything. And then we also did the 25% reduction for this year because of the transportation issues at the beginning of the school year. So that I think that's what you're seeing reflected there. So overall, that's what kind of occurred in budget revision 3. Decreased expenditures by $550,000, increased revenue by $200,000. So we did put in a couple of charts, just the operating revenue and expenditures, so you can see we still are budgeted at like $367,000 of deficit spending, which again is intentional because we're trying to bring down that fund balance. So according to budget revision 3, our ending fund balance would be 54, right over 54%. So trying to work in the direction of getting to our goal of between 25 and 50. I don't know that I'd say we'd be under 50 this year. I think we'll end up being over 50, probably a little bit over 54, if I had to guess at the end of the year. But we're trending in the direction that we want to be trending in there. And then finally, as we were discussing with the defeasance and the debt margins, we put in the last one so you can see the fund balance chart at the 54.12%, and then the debt margin just to show that we did have that defeasance that happened this winter, and also we've made our bond payment, our principal payment this spring. So kind of another year under our belts of those bonds, and you can see in those, that as we do those things, the purple section, which is how much we, like our bonding capacity, how much more we could borrow if we came up with a big project or anything like that, continues to grow. And the gray section, which is how much debt we owe, continues to shrink, which is the direction that we want to go in general, and then especially with no large projects identified right now that we would want to spend that on. That's, I think, where we need to be.
Which is the yellow, the
Yes.
unused debt, so that stayed the same.
Mhm.
Those are the ones that we haven't sold yet.
So any questions on budget revision 3? And again, I know it's weird because we've already approved it, but,
Steve, the ESSER 3, I know it was timing dealing with like the reimbursements. How has the state been with that? When we ask, have they been good, or do we
yeah,
have a
so we
waiting
haven't
period?
submitted any reimbursements for ESSER 3 yet.
Okay.
Typically, the state, depending on the specific day that you request a reimbursement, if they determine that you did it correctly, they will pay you within a month. And they typically make payments about the 20th or the 21st of each month, so it just like, if you get it in before they're cut off for that month, you could get it within that month, otherwise it's the next month. So we haven't done that yet for ESSER 3. I assume that it will work on the same timeline, but
But for ESSER 2s, it was fine?
we also haven't submitted for ESSER 2. We're waiting for that project to finish up.
So that, yes, so we chose large projects so that we could submit it all at once. So the performance contract at the high school, we're waiting for it to be completely buttoned up and then pay the final bill and then submit it for reimbursement.
So, and our plan is to do that probably, I would say, if not by the end of this month, the first week of May would be a goal for us to do that. So we still have a few little things on the performance contract that we still have one final payment to make on it, which until we make the final payment, we can't request the reimbursement from DESE. So I don't anticipate there should be any issues with it, but
I mean, I don't know if we
yeah.
heard any, it's just, we're asking for money from the state.
Right.
and-
We haven't had,
That's reflected in this budget, right?
yes, yeah.
The
Yes.
same.
The
revenue and-
anticipation, yeah.
Correct,
Yeah.
so revenue and expense, so net effect should be 0 unless they take longer for us to
Right.
pay it, then we'll get the
That'd be
revenue
across
next
years.
year.
Yep. And if that happens, that will be something that we talk about. So just so everyone knows, this looks like this because this happened.
Right, okay.
But we're not going there, we're gonna get it back.
That's what we think.
That's right.
Yep, I
Be
like positive
positive.
attitude. Mhm.
No, one comment I do want to make on when you talked about the debt margin, even if we're in a good place because we've been handling our finances well and living kind of within our means would be the idea. But if we had, what that means is that if we had some serious crisis come up where we needed to replace a building or something like that, we have the capacity to do it.
That would be serious.
Yes, but I mean, that's important as an organization that we have that option available to us. Some districts dip into that and dip into that and dip into that and push the limit of that. And they end up in kind of crisis moments when there's a downturn in the economy. So hopefully we can keep on a good solid footing like we are.
We always have highs.
But I do want to call it out because it is a very good thing to have.
Yes.
I'm
So-
available, yes.
Yep, we're in a good
Did you hear me,
position.
Mike? I
What?
said we always have highs.
Yes, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. He's right.
Go next door, make some bread.
Okay, well, no more questions on that. We can move on to talking about the preliminary budget for next year. Yep.
I'm past that.
So I have a few notes. Also on the slides for this, we posted kind of the same 3 charts that you can go to. I'm on slide 9 now, I think. So looking at the preliminary budget, Krista and I have also spent a lot of time doing this over the past few weeks. Luckily, we were close enough to a collective bargaining agreement that we had numbers that we could use for it, so that was really good. And now with the approval of it tonight, we feel really good about the numbers that we used. So that was good to have that information. So everything that was approved there and has been approved tonight and was approved at the last board meeting as far as salary increases and staffing and things like that is included in this budget, up through some of the staffing changes last week. So, and any of I know we've had a lot of retirements, there's a lot of people leaving this year, any of those, we put placeholders in place for, anticipated starting salary for whatever we think the replacement person might be. So all of those things are included in this budget. Talking through some of the key items that might be different in this budget than they were in previous years. On the revenue side, there's not a whole lot different. We talked at the Finance Committee a little bit about our local revenue and about our taxes. It's a non-reassessment year this coming year, so I don't anticipate any big changes in our assessed valuation. I don't anticipate any big changes in our tax rates, and I don't anticipate any big changes in our collection rates. So I really am thinking that our tax revenue should be pretty close next year to what it was this year. We felt comfortable and really we're budgeted almost exactly the same next year as we were this year. State revenue, we've been getting information about what's going on at the state level. The governor's released his recommendations. That's kind of all being worked out now as to what the state budget's going to look like. It doesn't appear like there's going to be many changes to school funding for us specifically. It looks like the formula is going to be funded about the same way that it was in the past. So we should see about the same amount of money there. Really the big difference that we've seen so far is Prop C, which is another thing that the state kind of regulates the amount of money that's put into it. There is going to be an increase in that. It's looking like the increase could be about 20% more than what we got last year, which is a little over $500,000 for us. So we put that in the budget.
What is that for?
So Prop C is an additional tax that's statewide. It actually comes through St. Louis County, but it's meant specifically to fund schools to help support the school districts.
So is that in the state revenue line or is that in the county line?
It is in the local revenue line. So when you look at the revenue that shows that we're up over this year's budget by $466,000, we're up $530,000 just in Prop C. So there's some other things that bring that down, but that's where you would see that impact on the budget for next year. So all indications are that that's going to increase for next year, just because we've had a better year with some of those taxes in our state. Another area of revenue that is going to have some changes is food service. We're going to see, our entire food service budget is going to be completely different than it was this past year. During the past, 2 years, our food service funds have shown up in our federal budget because it's all been paid for through the state lunch and breakfast programs. This preliminary budget, we still get those funds as we normally would for reimbursable free and reduced lunch meals, but there's also in our local revenue, there's increases for sales to pupils, which is sales to students for non-free students or full-paid students. So we're budgeting as though we're going back to a food service program like 2 years ago.
Do we know that that's going to happen? Has a decision been made officially?
A decision has been made to not extend the seamless summer option.
Okay.
It will end 6/30.
It will, yeah. So it will end on June 30th. There's been murmurs that they'd like to do something else, but I haven't heard anything that I think has enough legs to.
We don't know if it's completely
to make it,
out of the
so.
question, but right now, seamless summer is over the end of this year.
Yep, so we'll be going back to, setting meal prices and doing the same thing we used to.
I was thinking, a couple of years ago, it's hard to remember that far back, right? We were talking about trying to make sure that the students who would qualify were actually using the program. And so, I think just trying to do some things to make sure that their families are able to sign up and keep it going, and then we would continue to get that reimbursement. And so I think we have to be proactive about that.
And I'm hoping with that wonderful benefit of having it will also encourage them to say, okay, how do I do it?
Right, let's keep it going. We've had that,
Exactly. Same thing, us reaching out and making sure they need help filling out the form, or also our form's gonna be available online this year, which we hope that will increase participation as well.
Tyler won't let me look at anything without reminding me that I need to go in and fill out something about free and reduced lunch.
Really? Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
But I just keep minimizing it and going past. So if that's true of me, I'm not sure what that says for the other parents in the district. Like,
Yeah.
wait, I just wanted to see the NWA scores.
Yeah.
Just-
So yeah, it is in Tyler, which is nice and makes it more accessible to people. It's not mandatory that people fill it out, so there is still that. I also think we're gonna do some work around discussing lunch balances about what's out there and how we communicate with those families. And I think we also need to do a little bit of work with families, because we have 2 years of kids who've never eaten a normal lunch and had to pay for it in our schools.
Right.
So we need to work with those families to make sure that they know what's coming, to know how to use it, and those things too. So I think, assuming that it goes this way, we have a little bit of work to do this summer to try to get everyone kind of prepared for that and make sure we're communicating the correct things. So we just started talking about this with the other cabinet members this past week.
We have a great communications professional that can help with that.
I think we've met.
Award-winning.
Award-winning. So yeah, that's, so food service is some of the revenue showing up in local instead of federal, and that's what those changes are trying to reflect.
Got it.
And then another big change is ESSER 3. So there's a little bit of, a few things that are budgeted in the 21-22 year projects from ESSER 3 that we think are going to be completed so we can request reimbursement before June. The bulk of it is going to be put into 22-23, probably 90% of it, 95% of it. And so, our goal there, as we were talking about, is to try to have the expenses, submit the reimbursements as quickly as we can to try to get both the expense and the revenue as much as possible in the same year. With ESSER 3, well, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but there's going to be some salaries. So we're not going to 100% get there, but we're going to try to make it as close as we can. And I have a slide on that later that we can talk a little bit about kind of what our plan for that looks like for this year. On the expense side in the preliminary budget, a few things other things that we wanted to talk about. The big thing, salaries and benefits. If you look at the 10th slide, 11th is what I meant by 10th. It kind of shows a breakdown that shows salaries and benefits. We're up about $900,000 over this year. So 2 important things kind of to note there. One, this does reflect all of the pay increases, and a good amount of those were offset by some of the retirements. And the other thing to keep in mind there is that while we do have those ESSER 3 funds, it was mandatory to have 20% of those funds set aside for learning loss. The way that we've decided as a district to address that is through doing 1-year contracts with interventionists at the buildings. So we've posted for 8 of those positions. That's about $550,000. So of that $900,000 increase, $550,000 of that is using ESSER 3 funds for these 1-year positions. So that's another thing to
Those
just
are
keep in mind.
additional people coming into the
Additional
building,
people,
not
yes.
an extra duty pay for something.
Not an extra duty, additional full-time
Yeah.
teachers.
What's the timing for our students to be able to take advantage of that? Is that an after-school service, or is this?
No, they're going to be full-time employees.
That's awesome.
2 at each of our grade level buildings for
We'll be
the
pushing in the classroom.
I think we've approved some of them already, I think.
Yeah, they're not identical in each building, so each building is a little bit different, but still under that interventionist umbrella. They're certified staff members
That's awesome.
that will be at school all day,
Great.
doing different things.
But for 1 year, and then see how that.
Yep. So yeah, the 900,000 is a little bit misleading because that is in there as well. So good to note that.
It's helpful.
Yep. And then our debt service, if you look at our debt obligations on there, you can see it's down by 1.9 million. That's a reflection of the defeasance that's not going to happen next year, that happened this year. So really that's kind of the entire story there. Our capital projects, $1.8 million less in the coming year. So there's there's a few different things that's going on there, and that's mostly because of what we identified as our project list for last year, which was, I think, outside of bond funds, one of our biggest years in capital projects that we've had, and then what we've identified so far. So I do think that there's a little bit of room in the budget that we could increase our capital projects budget a little bit over what's here. We just need a little bit more time to work on the project list to see what types of things might be able to be addressed. We really have our project slate for this summer set, and we know how difficult it is to get big projects done while there's students in buildings. So we'll start having some conversations about things that can happen over winter or spring break, or maybe during the month of June that might be able to be added to that as well. So I imagine we'll do some work on that before we bring back this budget for adoption in June as well. And then a couple of other things. Our purchase service budget is down a little bit. I think it shows down $140,000. There's just a few random things. Food service, again, kind of rears its head here. We're down a little bit in food service. Security, and then we did a scanning project this year. So a couple of random things that aren't going to happen next year that we had this year. Our supplies, kind of the same situation. Food, again, is one of the things that made our supply budget go down. Tech supplies is going to be down a little bit, and that's because we're not going to do a rotation of laptop replacements this year. Adam didn't need it this year. We've done enough in the past couple of years that it wasn't necessary this year. And then our utilities, as Jeff mentioned during his program evaluation, we're really trying to work on that. We think that there might be some more room even to go down in utilities, but we're waiting for a little bit more data with some of the changes we've made. And then another one is legal. We had a big legal year this year.
Did we?
I think, yeah.
Yes, we did.
Gosh.
There are not any attorneys here tonight, but there have been many times.
We like you, attorneys.
I did communicate with an attorney today,
No
though,
letters
and
from
yesterday.
Attorney General, so
But, yeah.
So really between collective bargaining, which we have an attorney sit in and prepare for, and all of that, and the lawsuit from the Attorney General, those were two large things that don't happen every year, and we don't plan on happening next year. So we were able to.
I can think of a few other things too. We've got a long list of
There's a long
attorneys we've
list,
been
yeah.
working with for various
We still
things.
have a
That was
legal
the short
budget.
list.
It's just not as large.
Let's hope, let's be very hopeful, so thank you for reflecting the hopefulness in the
Yes.
budget.
It is. So those were really the big things that I wanted to go over that were different kind of than the current fiscal year. This is on the next slide. We have a graph that shows the operating fund balance, which we like to talk about. And so this preliminary budget reflects 48.5% is where we would end the year. Now we still got a decent amount of work to do on the budget that we'll be doing between now and June. It does bring it into the area that we prefer. We haven't been under 50% in a couple of years. I think we'd like to get back there, and so I did like that this chart shows that we're at least trending in the direction that we want to go, that we feel the most comfortable with. So we're trying to continue working on that as we do these things. So we'll take a look at what that looks like in June, and it, as always, will be a continuing conversation on how we do some of those things.
That's where I got on the board right there. See that?
You like that? Yeah.
I do like that.
What was that?
Let's just show them where I got, you don't have the graph up, so.
Right here?
I was
Yeah.
pointing out where I entered the
You
board.
entered when we
Where
were
you
way
entered.
up
Uh-huh.
here.
At the bottom.
Oh, no,
We were
where
working on it.
we
We
were
were
on the
trending
slope.
up.
We were on
We
the
were trending
slope,
up.
yeah.
Yeah, my
Going in
first
the right
year
direction.
was the 14.18%.
I'm sorry, Steve. And thank you.
I'm sorry, and thank you.
And I do think it is important that we are trying to be good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars
Spending
and
the
try
money
to,
that we have.
and
Thank
manage
you.
it. We're picking up some deferred maintenance, but we are monitoring so that we're not.
Yes. And just
Out of
a
line.
general reminder with how heavily dependent we are on local tax revenue and how the cash flow works with taxes, that in order for us to not need to borrow money to make payroll during the fall months, we say 25%, it really is 30 to 35% that we would need to be at without borrowing money. So
Right.
Just another thing to keep in mind
Absolutely.
as we talk about that.
Yep, I remember doing that. It's not fun.
It's not fun.
We did it my first year, we were still doing it.
So moving on from that, included in that budget is a long-range project list. We have these for several years out, but there's a few items identified on here that you can anticipate happening during the next year. Some of them, like I mentioned, you've approved. There's roof replacements that are on there. We have $750,000 of that. That's just for the labor for Rogers and Gotch. We've already paid for the materials for that out of this year's budget, so that will be happening this summer. We've talked about that quite a bit. So there's probably a few new, I guess doors and windows has also been approved. Classroom ceiling replacements has also been, we've approved a contractor for that.
Like baseball stadium, didn't we?
The baseball stadium, there's a few other odds and ends that still need to be done there in order to clean everything up that we're trying to make sure all of that happens over the summer. So we have a little bit of more work to do there. Building automation at Gotch, that's main year was done almost entirely over spring break. So Gotch is the next one up, so they'll start working on that and hope to be done in June. And then the steam boiler replacement in the administration building also it's going to happen in June, but we're gonna probably pay it out in July. So this is a list. There are a few things on here that we probably haven't talked about yet or need a bit more planning. And then we also know that there's some things in here that are going to definitely need more time, attention, and funding, but we just kind of want to get the ball rolling on it. So one of those things I could tell you is our kitchen renovation at the high school.
That's like the
something that
kitchen
we
in the
haven't-
cafeteria, not like
That's
the
not
fax kitchen.
Yes,
Okay.
it is, and anyone who has spent any amount of time in the high school kitchen knows that it's not a great place to be. So it also is something that must happen over the summer. It cannot happen this summer. So the earliest that we're looking is next summer, and it's not like a June project. And honestly, we think that the budget for it is probably closer to like $1 million to $1.5 million. So it's something that we definitely need to get working on designing and working out all of the things that need to happen there. So it shows up on here because we think there's a chance that maybe something could happen during June that we would pay out next year. But we have kind of a long road ahead to make that happen. Let's see, other things on there that might be new.
I think what's tricky about this list gets to, we've done so many of the things that the community has been waiting on that are outward facing, that everybody gets behind and gets so excited about, and a lot of this is more invisible, so it's keeping that momentum going even when there isn't the payoff of like starry-eyed kids in a beautiful new library. It's a little different than that.
Yeah,
but
it's one of those things, Mike brought up deferred maintenance. We talked about deferred maintenance also in our finance committee meeting, and it's a challenge because we've gotten to the point on some of the deferred maintenance where it's just complete replacement. Like there's no,
You can't fix it.
you can't fix
defer
it.
it
There's no,
anymore.
and so while you hate to sink money into a high school kitchen, you do need freezers that work. Like it's just one of those things that it just has to happen, and it's not great back there. So we're we've been trying to stage these things out. We've been trying to address classrooms. We've been trying to make the biggest impact things and take care of those items off the list as we could. And now we're still trying to check some of these things and work on roofs.
get those steam boilers out.
Make sure that our buildings are all buttoned up and operating like they should.
Yep.
So-
It's been a big job, and the team has done a good job.
Yes, it has, and I think the things that you're seeing on here too, I think we've talked a lot about HVAC upgrades over the last couple of years. There's some rooftop units that are going to be replaced. Those are going to be part of the ESSER 3. The remainder of the building automation is all part of ESSER 3. So having ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 come around has really kind of made us really expedite the process of upgrading our HVAC systems. I think had that not happen, we'd be spending the next 5 to 10 years trying to replace stuff because our stuff was that old and antiquated and on borrowed time. But the items that are here on this list, I think as far as HVAC goes, we should be in a really pretty good spot by the time that we get done with these projects, and then we can focus on some of the other things, specifically roofs.
We'll do the roofs while we just keep pointing to the field. Look at the
Exactly.
beautiful
Yeah.
field,
Exactly.
nothing to see over there.
So, you know, we're trying to bite off those chunks and go forward with it, but.
I think if we get a drone and kind of do some, you know, roofs, oh, look at this roof, this is what it looks like. Oh, look at this one, we only have 550 different roofs in the
It's true, you can see it, if you go on Google Earth and you look at our high school, you can see our roof is 40 different colors. And it is because each one of them was replaced.
It's artistic.
It is.
It's a kaleidoscope.
That's what we're going for.
And
I need
also
to go look
dealing
at
with
that.
buildings that aren't designed in a modern way. Like the high school was designed, the roofs of the high school were designed
Yes.
to have air flow through the building, and we don't do that. We
Right.
have HVAC systems now, so we don't do that anymore. So it's, having to retrofit all of that and make those changes is something that we're also dealing with.
I like showing off the roof of this building with the solar panels on it.
Yes.
So that's
Yep.
nice.
Yes, and we'd like to do some more of those when possible as well. So, any questions about the project list? Any particular items that stick out? We are still trying to do some things that are really nice. I mean, the restroom renovations are something that I think everyone's very excited for. We do have an outdoor classroom idea at the high school that we've been sitting on for a little bit for the right time, mostly to be done building walls and fields and stuff back there, but we have an idea there that we're trying to still make visible improvements to, just so everyone knows that we're still trying to make those things better as well.
I feel like the locker rooms have been something that comes up over and over again too, so.
Yeah, in the locker rooms, we did an upgrade a few years ago, I'm sure several of the board
Because you
members
had to,
know.
because they were dangerous.
They were dangerous, they're gross.
I went
And now
into it.
I wouldn't say that they're dangerous and gross now, they're adequate now, but I think there's some accessibility improvements and maybe some similar privacy things that we're doing in the bathrooms that also probably need to be addressed for the locker rooms. So
Yes.
we're trying to look for ways to do that for our students too.
And I think I heard Jeff say that this will be the last boiler that we need to get rid of.
This is our last steam boiler, so after that, it's all gonna be hot water. We should be way more efficient. Yeah, no more steam bombs in our buildings.
Save the best for last. Get you guys all taken care of.
It's true. So I think they're gonna start, I think any day now, pulling the one out of the basement of the admin building. So we should be well on our way, and that project should be done.
We have an antiques museum somewhere.
No, my suggestion was we drop it on Doug's front lawn.
Oh, I like
Because he
it.
loves boilers.
I know, that's right.
So moving on from that, I know I've talked about SR3 a couple of times. This is just a summary, just because it's a large amount of money that we're going to be responsible for reporting on. And this is our year to spend all of it. So actually, our final allocation went up a little bit from our preliminary allocation, about $30,000. So a little bit over $2.3 million. Probably 2.2 of that is budgeted within this fiscal year. $543,000 is what we've budgeted in the preliminary budget for the 8 interventionists. And you can see 2 each at the high school, Rogers, Gotch, and Manier is what that looks like. That's more than 20% of the funds. We're probably closer to 30% on that. And then the remainder of the funds, which is $1.76 million, we're focusing on trying to clean up the rest of our HVAC systems and building automation. So Manier automation, which I said is already done, Gotch's building automation, which should be happening in June, and then the high school, some rooftop replacements need to happen for the cafeteria area. There were, our what was that project called? That we just did? Performance contract, yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. That we did last summer addressed probably 80-ish% of the high school. The other 20% was still on other systems, and some of those do need replacing too. It just wasn't cost effective to do them within that project. So those rooftop units are for the cafeteria area, and they're well overdue to be replaced, so we're gonna replace those. And also, because we only addressed 80% of the building, only about 80% of Afton High School is on our building automation system. So the goal is to do that and to get 100% automated with these funds. And then, depending on how much money is left over, I don't think that we're planning on doing the entire admin building under the ESSER 3 budget, but if we were considering just paying for the equipment using the ESSER 3 funds to try to put most of that money in the school buildings instead of the admin building, we'd prefer to do that if we can. So that's kind of the way that we're looking at it going forward. So all of those things are budgeted in the preliminary budget, both on the expenditure side, and we've matched it on the revenue side. So the tricky thing with that is our teachers do get their contract payouts in June. They get 4 checks in June, and the concern is that those aren't going to be able to be paid. The revenue isn't going to be reimbursed to us within this fiscal year. There's just not enough turnaround time on it. But we'll try to do everything else except for those, and there'll just be a little bit of the revenue that kind of hangs over into the 23-24 fiscal year. But there's really not a whole lot we can do about it.
Yeah, if you just line that out for us, we'll be able to.
Yeah, and it'll all be included in the budgets, and there will be revisions to these all next year. We'll continue talking about them as we go through.
Yep.
So that's everything that we had for
That's all.
finance workshop.
That's it.
That's it.
That's awesome.
A lot of good information.
Mm-hmm. Any questions?
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, no problem.
Pretty good?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Some board comments. And I don't know if y'all have noticed this yet. I didn't draw it to anyone's attention in case it changed, but there is no exec session.
I saw that.
So
I
this is
wasn't sure.
actually.
I was
the
afraid to say
end of
something.
the-
I didn't want to say anything.
I don't know.
gonna say.
I'm not getting any text right now, Travis. You didn't text me anything, right? We're not going into exec, are we?
What do you mean there's no exec? I like spending so much time with you.
Travis gave us the evening off from exec,
What?
so. Board comments. We'll start with you.
Oh, McGee. I spoke with Dr. McGee, who's going to get the phenomenal tonight. I have to say it's our financial workshop in the duo. It's the phenomenal award from Mr. Levinson here tonight. Thank you guys, obviously, for that hard work and making things just so much more understandable for people like myself. I'll speak for it. It's just, that's greatly appreciated. Let's see. Congrats, I don't know if it's congratulatory, but our probationary to tenure, I think that that's great. We have a nice stack of those that are moving out of the probationary status and becoming tenure. Obviously, congrats to our tenures. Appreciate our citizen comments coming in and speaking with us. And moving on, welcome to our same new exec. Appreciate you guys willing to continue that task
yes.
for another glorious year of the Afton School Board.
Hopefully for an easier one.
Come on, Mike.
Is it ever?
Don't say something like that to me.
Yeah, Mike. Set her up.
You just jinxed it,
I think
Mike.
that's all I have written down for notes. I apologize if I forgot anything, but, yeah.
Thank you. Bridget?
I didn't write any notes down, but thank you guys tonight. I learned so much from these, and I appreciate what all you guys do, putting time and stuff into this. So, looking forward to the SOAR Awards tomorrow. That's always a fun time, so that's it. I don't have much to say.
I agree. I'm gonna, you know what, Justin sent me comments. I'm gonna pull them up before I have a chance to forget. Justin said, thank you for the ability to join virtually tonight. And he appreciates the flexibility when conflicts arise, and he will see us at the next meeting. Thanks, Justin. Right? Kenny, how about you next?
Oh, hello. Yeah, thank you so much for not only going over this presentation now, but during our meeting before the meeting. And everything leading up to it. I do appreciate all your hard work, and thanks a lot. Well, almost everybody's gone, but the evaluation presentations that were given earlier, very helpful. It helps when they explain it more than just reading through everything. It is nice to hear something. Yeah, congratulations to the teacher tenures, and also I hope the teachers are happy with their new collective bargaining agreement, and we can move on forward and happy. Thanks.
Thanks. Patricia?
I just want to say thank you to Jordan and to Mike for re-upping for 3 years and for your commitment to this district for another 3 years. Congratulations on being part of this amazing group for another tenure. And again, to our executive folks who I know it's been really hard this past year. And you guys are doing you're doing a phenomenal job.
2 times in one night.
Phenomenal, because we have an amazing board and we have amazing administrators to work with, and so we are so appreciative of this team. And you know, we've been talking a lot about team in that, you know, the book that we've been reading, and I really feel like we are building a good team here and a solid district that we're moving forward in the right direction. So good for all of us and good for our community. And thank you for the workshops. Every time we have a workshop, I think this is so important for what we're doing. It gives us a chance to really delve into some things, and so just making sure that we have time for that in these meetings, so we can just talk about these things and ask questions that we wouldn't just normally ask. Well, you know, I ask questions all the time, but the rest of us, you know, just kind of to dig into some of that. I think that's really important.
Thank you.
All right, well, I appreciate all the other comments. I wanted to add one thing. We had 3 of our staff come to our meetings tonight that were in the collective bargaining sessions with us. We had 1 at the finance committee, and then we had 2 here tonight, and 1 still remains here to the bitter end. So thank you.
Hello.
It is good to have that communication and see those faces. I guess they just missed us from the bargaining meetings, so.
Wanted to see the
No, but
rest
anyway,
of
thank
us.
you for coming.
There's no dinner tonight, though.
No dinner?
No dinner tonight, no. And we had the finance committee meeting before this, so there will be dinner after this, I guarantee you.
All right, good. Okay. Thanks again to Jordan and Mike for signing on for another 3 years, and to Justin for making it virtually tonight and for agreeing to serve as our treasurer again, and Mike for agreeing to serve as vice president. And just, I'm honored to serve another year as president, and so thanks for your trust, and I am looking forward to a wonderful year ahead. I will
Yes.
make no predictions about what may or may not transpire in the world, but I'm hopeful to have a year where we get to just spend a lot more time focused on kids, which is why we all do this, and a lot less time on you know, public health departments and things like that. But I really appreciate all of you. Part of the reason I'm glad to serve again is because I enjoy serving with you, so thank you. And I also wanted to just say thanks to everybody who's here tonight who is part of bargaining, which is a lot of people in the room, including teachers and administrators and board members. And it's an arduous process no matter what. It's just a lot of things to hammer out. And so I appreciate everybody's time and energy, and glad that we get to move forward from that as well. And so on that note, I don't even have anything to read. I'm just gonna, I mean, do I even need to make a motion? I don't even think I've ever once in a year as president ever not come to exec.
Where's your gavel?
So we're going to adjourn at 8:59 PM. Thanks, everybody. It's a miracle. It's a small miracle.
It's been 2 years since we haven't had an executive
I
session.
really, I mean, I don't think I ever have just like sent everybody home. Not